Hey everybody, this is a little bit of an impromptu live stream, but let me get some things adjusted here. Give ourselves a little bit more light. All right. So anyway, we I wanted to talk about some stuff. Hey, what's up, Eric? So I wanted to talk about some stuff that we recently did. Recently, I posted a video about this particular handgun, and we were talking about the Aimpoint Acro P1 sight. And a lot of folks, I already knew the commentary was going to be fairly abrasive, should I say, because, it does look like a mailbox on top of the handgun, right? But the point that I was trying to make was that handgun sights need to evolve. And in their current state, they're not at their optimal performance. Do sights like this one, which is on the M17, and it's a Delta Point Pro. Do these sights have application? Yeah, I wasn't trying to say they were useless, but the problem with them is the emitter is back here and the lens is up here, and there's airspace in between. You get something between the emitter and the lens, and you get less than optimal performance. And I had some guys, saying that I'm making up a problem that doesn't need a solution and things like that. And I get it. That's the internet. But I wanted to have a deeper conversation about it with you guys. And Jason is just over here writing down some of your most relevant questions that hopefully we can answer on the live stream. But I just wanted to also tell you guys that because of you and reading through the comments, I do try to read all the comments. I can't always respond because I have so many Patreon emails. If you want to communicate with us, the best way is through Patreon because I prioritize those communications first. And then public emails I may or may not ever get to, depending on what my workload is, talking to the people that actually support us here at the channel. But one of you guys had mentioned, well, haven't you seen the Doctor or the Knoblauch red dot sight? Now, I hadn't at the time, and it was going back to having a discussion about the size of the Acro P1. And they said that Knoblauch purchased Doctor. Doctor is a German company, was a German company. Knoblauch is a German company that manufactures red dot sights. They were doing reflex sights before reflex sights were cool here in the United States. And I've heard people say, and I don't know if this is the truth, that they actually helped Trigicon with their early electronics when they were coming out with the RMR. But definitely Doctor was a leader in red dot sights on handguns for quite some time. So in the comment section, one of you guys had brought up the Knoblauch sight, and I'm not sure what they call this one. I've seen it called the quick sight. And then when you're talking about the MOS mounting plate version, they just call it the Knoblauch sight. I don't see quick sight in the name. And that's looking at the Optics Planet website where I got this one. So here I have a Gen 5 Glock. And yes, I really do use Enforce lights. I love those lights. And you notice I had an Enforce on the M17 as well. But here is that Knoblauch sight. All right. And it as well is a fully contained reflex sight, meaning the emitter and the lens are in this little tiny housing right here. Now, I posted something over on Instagram. If you don't follow us on Instagram, I highly recommend that you do. It's Military Arms, at Military Arms over there on Instagram, and you'll see some different angles of this little teeny tiny sight. Right here is your battery compartment. You have a flush lens here, and you have a flush lens here, and it 100% co-witnesses. I'll go ahead and show you guys at the weapon's safe. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and lock the slide to the rear. You guys can see there's nothing in the chamber, and the magazine well is empty. Now, if you look, you can probably get a glimpse of the red dot. Let me see if I can line it up. See the red dot right there, guys? So when you light up your red dot sight, it should be sitting right over your front sight post. And if you're used to getting a normal sight picture, when you draw your weapon and bring it up to eye level, when you naturally center those sights, boom, there's a red dot. Now, much like the Acro, you can completely cover this lens, and you will still get a red dot. Now let's see if I could get it lined up here without the front sight. You see the red dot right there, kind of floating around. So you don't need to see through these sights, the Acro P1 or the quick sight. As long as that rear lens is clear and you can see the dot, you superimpose that dot onto the target with both eyes open, you can still use the optic. So you don't need to co-witness. And as I'd mentioned, the lenses are smooth. So if you do get mud on there, you just wipe it off. There's no recess. There's no, nothing to hold debris into the sight. It is completely encapsulated in that little tiny window, if you will. And so that was brought to my attention. And I really do think, guys, if not this one, I would expect to see something like this from Trijicon. Looking at the Acro next to this, and I was really impressed with the Acro. I'm really happy it's on the market. But yes, I will admit it's rather large. And I think in my video, I said, this is a first step. This is a first generation attempt, but this is the future of red dot sights. And I stand by that. In 5 years, red dot sights like the one found here will be things of the past. They'll go the way of the Aimpoint 1000 red dots and things like that. This is truly the future in red dot sights on handguns. And there's been a lot of resistance out there. And it's kind of funny because I remember the resistance when people were starting to put red dot sights on rifles. Today, it's just a standard feature for a rifle to have a red dot sight. It totally changed the game for rifles, and it will with handguns as well. What we have to get away from are the first generation reflex sights like this, because they are not conducive to hard use. Yes, they can take a beating in RMR. You can smack it against a tree, drop it from shoulder height onto asphalt, and it's not going to break. But it still has the possibility of debris getting between the emitter and the lens. So this really truly is the future, and that's what I wanted to do a quick video about and just do it live versus doing a whole video and editing it. And I have some different live streaming stuff here. You'll notice the microphone. We have this really cool little self-contained system I wanted to try out for our live streams for our Patreons over on Patreon. So anyway, what do you guys think about red dot sights? Me, personally, red dot sights on handguns, they truly are the future. And eventually, I think sights like this will come to dominate. Now, what I want to find out, and this will be a video, is if this thing is going to be very durable. When I drop it, is it going to break or lose zero? It is water resistant, so it can be submerged. I mean, it seems to have many of the same features as the Acro. It's always on. It's self-brightening. The cabinet that it's made out of is made out of steel. It's not aluminum. So it seems to be a fairly robust system. You can see how it mounts onto the MOS plate. It does not require a mounting plate. It bolts directly to the Glock MOS without a special mounting plate. The optic is the mounting plate. When I got that from Optics Planet, I was just simply blown away once I put it on the pistol. And again, it's a Gen 5 Glock 19. So, hey, Jay, we got some cool questions?
So there's a couple of people that feel like you would have like a slowed reaction time on a self-defense situation using an RDS.
Okay, so some of you guys have said there would be a slowed reaction time in acquiring a sight picture versus iron sights. And this is what I taught Jason, and when I explained it to him, he'll tell you he very quickly learned that this works. When you bring the gun up, if you're used to using iron sights, just bring it up like you would looking for your iron sights, and the dot will just magically appear. The nice thing about the dot is it's parallax free for the most part at 50 yards. If you put the dot right over the furthest most edge of the lens, you might get one or 2 inches point of a shift. But if you bring it up and center that dot with both eyes open, it is infinitely faster. And I've proven this to myself by doing a friendly competition with friends. They all had iron sights, and I brought out a pistol with a red dot sight on it, and we were shooting falling blocks at various ranges, and I owned the competition, and I had the unfair advantage. The red dot sight gives you an advantage. You don't have to worry about sight alignment. All you have to do is look for a dot, and there's no two things to line up. All you do is put the dot on the target and pull the trigger. So I think the learning curve for some folks may be a little bit steep, especially on handguns like the Glock that naturally tend to point high. You need to cock your wrist downward to get a proper sight picture, because in my opinion, while it's the perfect sized handgun, the Glock 19 and its 17 and its other, brothers and sisters have really, really poor ergonomics. It's not a very good grip angle. It's a very thick grip. And I say that affectionately because I do love the Glock 19. It's kind of the gold standard by which all modern carry guns are judged by. So if you want to use a red dot sight, when you go out and practice with it, I do recommend having backup iron sights. This one sets so stinking low that the factory Glock sights co-witness 100% through it, which is a really cool feature. I'm not endorsing the sight or saying it's good. I just put it on the handgun today. I have a whole lot of shooting to do with it before I really develop, an opinion on it. But just from its outward appearances and comparing it to the Acro, it certainly shows a lot of promise. But yeah, it just takes some practice, guys. And once you learn it, you're going to find your times are much faster. That's why you're seeing red dot sights being used in competition. If competition shooters didn't think it gave them advantage, they wouldn't use them.
Compatibility of mounts. Which mounts for which red dot sight? Are there any standards, or are they all different?
So the question is red dot sights and mounts, is there a standard? Or are they all different? For the most part, they're all different. And even Glock, when they made their MOS, the holes that they drilled in their slide to mount mounting plates, the screws are super short, and they don't ship the ding thing with the right screws. So you're running around the hardware store trying to find screws to mount optics to your MOS. Glock had a great idea, including the capability of being able to mount different options to their handgun, but they totally dropped the ball in giving you all the hardware necessary to install. Now, the Glock MOS will come with a number of different mounting plates. I think it's 4 or 5 different mounting plates. So the delta point's going to have a different hole pattern than the RMR, and then the Bushnell red dot sights. They're all going to have a different mounting plate, and the MOS comes with those. Most people do what's called an RMR cut. The gold standard currently in Reflex or red dot sights is the Trigicon RMR, which is very similar to the delta point here from Leupold on the M17 service pistol. So yeah, there's no real standard, and it may be years before there is a standard, but I would love to see some sort of standardization, because it makes it much easier for consumers to actually know what they're doing, obviously. So like if you take a look at red dot sights on the rifle, the T1 micro and the T2 micro, that's become a little bit of a standard because Primary Arms Optics use that same hole pattern, and some other optics companies do as well. So hopefully something takes off. Another question.
Would you recommend this for a first-time handgun buyer?
So the question is would I recommend it for a first-time handgun buyer? Well, I have a slightly different opinion on new shooters and what new shooters should or shouldn't do. Now, if you go to some gun stores and you say, hey, I'm a new shooter, what type of firearm should I be looking at? You may find somebody that's going to say, well, son or daughter or gal or whatever, you need to start off shooting a 22 and then work your way up to a 9mm. I don't buy into that philosophy. I think that's a huge waste of money and very, very bad advice. Handguns are handguns. And aside from shooting the cannons like the 500 Smith & Wesson or the 460 Smith & Wesson, when you're talking about 32 ACP, 380, 9mm, 40, 45, you're not talking about massive recoil. If your intent is to get a handgun that you're going to want to use and keep for a long time and possibly use for self-defense, look at a caliber that's practical. So I personally like 9mm. Now, when we're talking about sights, should you force yourself to learn iron sights and never, ever consider a red dot sight? Well, no. I think learning proper marksmanship and iron sights is something you would want to do on your own. But as I said, you can still do that with this particular red dot sight on this Glock. You still have your sight picture, and you can still practice shooting with your red dot sights, or I'm sorry, your iron sights along with your red dot sight. So I do believe having a fallback and having backups to your red dot sight, iron sights, is a good idea. And therefore it is a good idea to have those sights on your gun. So if you're a first-time buyer and you're looking at buying something like this, you'll notice that for whatever reason, the Army didn't have the presence of mind to include a rear sight on here. The Delta Point has a module you can put on here that'll allow a rear sight to be attached to it. But when you take the mounting plate off the M17, it takes the rear sight off with it. But most handguns that are MOS capable, like this, the Glock and the Smith & Wesson, they're going to leave their rear sight in place. You're just going to put a red dot in there. And if you want to try starting off shooting with a red dot, be my guest, go ahead. But I would recommend making sure you have iron sights on there and that you can co-witness them through the red dot sight. Just my advice. Any other questions?
Is there any mounts for revolvers for red dot sights?
Are there any mounts for revolvers for red dot sights? Yes, there are. Some of them are going to be kind of hard to find unless you have a revolver that has a pick rail on the barrel, which there are revolvers that do. But a lot of sights, I remember in the early days, and I have one of these next time I do a red dot sight video, I'll have to break it out, but I have one from Suarez International. And basically it's just a standard Glock, and you drift out your rear dovetail, you drift in the mounting plate, and it has a tensioning screw that you tighten down that makes the whole thing rigid, and then you can put your red dot sight on it. I would imagine something may exist like that for some of the revolvers out there already on the market. Not a real big revolver guy. I don't have a large revolver collection, and I've never attempted to put a red dot sight on a revolver, but yes, you could do it. I definitely know you can do it with some of the big hunting revolvers because Smith & Wesson, especially the custom shop guns, have pick rails across the top, and that facilitates the use of optics, red dot or magnified. Any other questions? Do you guys like this format? And take a look at some of your comments down here. Night sights for a CZ Phantom. Yeah, night sights can be a little bit hard. I'm having a hard time finding night sights for my Langdon Tactical LTT Beretta. It looks like Langdon may have some in stock on their website. Right after I say that, they won't be because you guys are probably browsing over there to buy them up now. Any other questions, man?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Not really? Okay. So everybody's saying yes, they love the format. I enjoyed just doing these impromptu videos. We were just finishing up some video that we had shot down in Georgia. We literally got in yesterday. We were down spending the whole week in Georgia with an Iraq veteran. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, and if you don't, you should, I darn near cut the end of my finger off with a Barrett Light 50. Now, where it gets the name Light 50, I don't know, because there's nothing light about the gun. Do you guys want to see what I did to my finger? It's pretty gruesome. Let's see what people say.
We got a few. If you could take each one with a lot of new viewers that have come in and just kind of say the name of it and how much about retail wise the dot is.
Okay. Just for the guys that are just coming in, this one, the Knoblauch, you're asking about the prices. The Knoblauch Sight that you see here at the MOS, I think is $513 on Optics Planet. The Acro is, boy, it's in the sixes. And again, I got this one from Optics Planet, but this one's going to be one of the more expensive ones. It's going to be more than the cost of the gun. Most red dot sights are going to be fairly expensive. Now you get type 1 and type 2 RMRs, and you're looking at, what's Copper selling those type 1s we just got a bunch in for? We're selling them under 5, aren't we? Like in the 4s?
I could have swore they're like $399 or.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that because I'm not entirely sure.
Copper Custom just got a bunch of type 1 RMRs in. They're going out because the type 2s are coming in, but externally they look very similar. And I want to say they're under $400. So that type of a reflex sight is very affordable right now. The type 2s are going to be a little bit more expensive. The Delta Point Pros, boy, I'd have to Google it. They're going to be in the high 5s if I'm not mistaken. So the red dot sight's going to add pretty much double the cost to your handgun. You have the price of the gun, and the red dot sight's going to be at right around the cost of the gun. So you're looking at a fairly substantial investment for buying a gun that's capable of accepting a red dot sight, and then buying that red dot sight to go with it.
$399.
$399 on.
3.25 MOA RMR type 1.
Okay. Yeah. $399. So Copper does have the RMRs on sale for $399. So that's actually really affordable for a ruggedized miniature red dot sight, which is what I think RMR stands for. Okay. So we were talking about, yeah, your gun is an investment, guys. If you take a look at what the purpose of the handgun is. If it's self-defense, I wouldn't, assuming you can afford to buy the products and not put yourself in the poorhouse or miss a mortgage payment or let a kid go hungry. If you can buy the RMR, if you can buy the Acro, if you can buy those optics and a quality handgun, it's your life that literally hangs in the balance. On my personal defensive guns, I'll spend whatever I need to spend to get the product I think I need. And then the rest of the guns get, primary arms optics, and, I cheap out everywhere I can because I invest pretty heavily in those firearms I use for personal defense.
So this one here, and then we'll get back on the topic. Handgun with most comprehensive modular optics system. I would say that'd be the 509 Tactical. It comes with everything. Which
handgun is the most comprehensive and coming with everything you may need to run optics? Yes, the FN 509 is very, very good, and the Glock MOS. It comes with a bunch of different mounting plates in the box, but you won't have some of the hardware you need to finish the mounting, which makes it rather useless. And Glock even knows they've done it, but for whatever reason, they continue not to give you every single piece that you need to mount all these different optics. So that's this little guy here, the MOS Glock.
A few other questions. One more question. Dot size. 3 MOA, 5 MOA. What's too big? What's kind of the best dot size?
All right. So very good question. So what is a good dot size for a handgun? So the dot size is, in essence, and it changes depending on how far or close you are to it from how long your arms are. But on average, let's say a Trijicon RMR, for example, has a dot that is 3.25 MOA, which means when you're holding the gun fully extended, the dot that you see will cover roughly a 3.5-inch circle or 3.25-inch circle at 100 yards. What do you need? I like the 3.25 or the 3 MOA dots. Some folks like slightly bigger dots. I believe the dot on this Knoblauch is a 5 MOA dot. But in looking at it, it doesn't seem overly big. Keep in mind, most handgun engagements are going to be within 15 yards. You're not going to be shooting 100 yards, hopefully. It's not to say it doesn't happen, because it has. Averages mean somebody had to get in a gunfight at 200 yards or 2 feet. So, but on average, your typical, firearm engagement is going to be inside 15 yards. You're going to have a hard time determining somebody's temper and intent at 100 yards. How you're going to have to face a jury, your peers, and say, no, really, I was scared of this person at 100 yards. And so keeping that in mind, even a 5 MOA dot, it's going to be a little bit bigger, but it's going to be easier to pick up. Some people with aging eyes like my own don't like the 3 MOA dots because they're a little too small. But keep in mind, they're bright. And so I have no problem picking up the 3 MOA dots, but I use the 5 MOAs just as good. I recommend you swing by a local gun store and check out the red dot sights they have on hand. Pick up one of the optics, hold it out at arm's length and look through it, and then just, put the dot on various things in the store, and it'll give you an idea of which dot size that you'll wind up preferring. That's it. Okay, that looks like it's it for the questions. For me, MOA doesn't change. Oh, for me, it definitely does. If I hold, I got to turn this thing on. There's the power switch on it right in the middle, I believe. Oh yeah. For me, the dot is much bigger when I hold it out versus when I hold it in. This one's blooming quite a bit. I got oil or something on it. So yeah, it depends on what your eye sees. You're not going to see a massive difference in dot size. It's going to be very minimal. But I'm trying to find one of these that isn't blooming. I think I got oil on the lens of my Delta Point Pro. All right.
So Tashin 32 donated $10. He says, "I blame you for showing off that Ruger chassis."
Yeah, we thank you for the super chat donation. Yeah, we showed off a new chassis. We had a Patreon gathering down in Georgia, and Hickok 45 came out, Such came out, Skinny Medic came out, 182nd Ideas or Gun Drama Johnny came out. Eric and Chad from Iraq Veteran were there, and then Jason and I were there. And we had a get together at this place called Adventure Outdoors. This was just a couple days ago. And we did showcase a new product that Copper is manufacturing, and it's a chassis system that will allow you to put a folding stock on a Ruger PCC carbine, the new 9mm carbines that came out. You can run Glock mags in it. It's made out of aluminum. You can do a side folding stock. You can do a telescoping stock. You can do a brace if you want to get one with a pistol. Ruger should be offering them as pistols shortly. Yeah, it's really, really kind of a cool setup, and we showed it to our patrons at that event to get some feedback, and hopefully within the next couple of weeks we'll have some pictures we'll show publicly. But yeah, all right, let's see what we got else in here. Will there be a video on the CZ P10C with the acro? There already is. It's only about 1 or 2 videos back, but we did do a complete video on the acro on the P10C. Now, I didn't talk a whole bunch about the P10C because I've already covered the handgun quite a bit, but we did talk about the acro and what I think of it. I beat it on a tree, and we're just starting our evaluation. One thing you'll notice, and you see that little paint line right there, that the click adjustments are almost non-existent on the acro. It's one of the things I don't like about it. You really have to pay attention to feel any type of tactile response from the clicking of the adjustments. Almost feels like it freewheels. And then once I get the sight zeroed out, I'll put a Sharpie paint marker. The paint sticks better than the ink. I'll put a paint marker line on it, letting me know that that's what my zero is. And if I look at my pistol really quick and I see those lines are no longer aligned, I know that my sight has been messed with. So any other questions, guys? Let's see.
Big Kid donated $4.99. Keep up the good work. Happy to support fellow 2A channels. Osprey Global makes a new flip-up red dot. Works well.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Big Kid, for the super chat. That's awesome. And I will look into the Osprey Global. Let me write that down here really quick so I can look at it right after the live stream. And they make a folding red dot sight. That's unique. Osprey Global RDS that folds. All right, I'll check that out, man. And thanks again for the super chat. No, we haven't had a chance to get the SRO. I have contacted Trijicon, tried to order some. Hopefully, we do carry Trijicon at Copper. Hopefully, we can get our hands on the SRO. I think they're going to be, fairly popular items. Keep in mind, now I didn't go to the NRA show. I only went to the TGC panel. I did not step foot inside the NRA show, so I did not get a chance to see the SRO optic. But from what I've seen in pictures, it's basically has a very large screen, much like the Delta Point Pro. The RMR, one of the things I don't like about it, which I talk about in my P10C/acro video, is that the RMR has a very small lens. And beyond that, there's color shift, and also there's distortion. There's fish bowling around the edges. And so really, if you're only looking at the dead center of the lens, do you really have a clean picture through it? If you kind of shift that dot one way or the other, it gets very distorted, and it's not really a problem for me because it's supposed to be used with both eyes open. Some people use red dot sights on handguns by closing one eye and aiming. That's not the way they're intended to be used. If you're just using both eyes open and you bring it up, it superimposes the dot, and you shouldn't even have to, you don't need to look through the sight itself. You can take a Sharpie and cover the front lens of a red dot sight, and you're still going to see the dot. And if that dot's on the target, you're still going to score a hit.
Doc, do you have to zero it on a rest to take as much of the human error out of it, or do you zero it just like you're shooting any other handgun?
Real quick, I'll answer that here in a second. So Brian, thank you for the $5 super chat. Bought himself a Kimber Eclipse Custom in 10mm a couple months ago. He absolutely loves it. 10mm is on the rise, and I love 10mm in 1911s. I'm a sucker for a 10mm 1911, man. So congratulations on your purchase. So when you're zeroing, I didn't zero these off a rest. I zeroed them on a man-sized steel target, and then I kind of confirm zero by shooting at a man-sized target at 100 yards. And if I can hit it at 100 yards, I know I'm pretty much on. So for me, we just paint the steel up, and I'll fire one shot, and I'll see where that lands. I'll aim at that round that just hit. I'll fire a second shot. If it's low, high, left, or right of that first shot, then I make my adjustment. So really, I'm using that first bullet hit as an aiming point for me to make my adjustments. I have noticed that how you hold a handgun If you hold the gun in your hand like this, some people will cant the gun in their hand like this. Others will cant it in their hand like that. How you grip that pistol will change based upon if you're resting on something or pushing against a barricade, trying to steady your shot versus just standing freehand. So, and how I zero a gun, I can have my gun perfectly dialed in for myself. I can hand it to Jason or somebody else. They'll pick it up. The gun will shoot left or right for them. We all hold guns differently. We even use sights differently. So yeah, I personally like to zero my red dot optics on my pistols by just trying to relax, practice good trigger control, try not to flinch, and zero the weapon by actually shooting it, not on arrest.
So Jordan Feldman donated $100.
Wow, man.
And he's asking, do you plan to gauntlet some of these red dots? I know it could get expensive.
Jordan, thank you, man, for that super chat. That's absolutely unbelievable. Thanks, man. That's crazy. Wow, thank you, man. Yes, we will. So we have a good selection of these red dot sights, and we were actually looking at that. What was the name of that site we were looking at today, Jason? That thing that we saw over at the gun shop. It was called but it's not a red dot sight. It's this goofy thing that has almost what looks like a level in the front of it, then a lens, and it's this weird optic for handguns and rifles. We almost bought one. It was only $129, but we didn't pick it up. But we're going to try to pick up as many of the red dot sights that we can, and certainly with the Acro, we're going to be abusing it as much as we can. We're going to do things within reason. I mean, yeah, it's fun to go out and freeze it in a block of ice and shoot it out with a 9mm handgun and see if that breaks the sight, but it's not something I consider to be practical. That's more or less entertainment. We're going to try to subject all these red dot sights to actual real world conditions, being dropped from shoulder height, being dunked in sand, water, and mud, being banged around, and see how well they hold up. This sight is absolutely ideal in my opinion. But if I drop it from shoulder height and it breaks, I have no use for it. It's not a good tool for self-defense, and we do plan to find that out. So thanks again for the super chat. We got it's a see-all sight. We were looking at this thing called a see-all sight. I've seen them before. It's a very awkward sight. Google it, see-all sight, and you'll see what we're talking about. We may pick one of those up as well.
There's another $5 super chat there.
From German?
Yep.
You should review the Garrison MC28. It is optics ready for $350. I have mine flipped up. So I have an MC28, one of the very first import guns. I know they made some changes to them. I believe Zenith Firearms was bringing them in. Maybe somebody else is now. But it's a Turkish-made handgun. I had actually, when I was in Turkey, I'd actually been to Garrison and seen it. Also TSOS, seen some of their stuff. Our MC28 is a very early one. It's not optics cut, and there are a few little quirks with it that they worked out later. I may see if I can pick one up because the handguns are very affordable. And I'm glad you like yours, man. Very much so. All right.
There we go. That's about all the on-topic stuff.
All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed the live stream. For those of you that want to stick around, because I got to change the bandage anyway, and want to see what happens when you drop a 50 caliber Barrett rifle barrel on your finger, I'll show you. Because I got to peel this off. If you guys are squeamish, if you don't want to see a little bit of gore, it's not that bad anymore. You might want to drop out now. But if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I pretty much almost ripped the end of my finger off doing something stupid. We do have a video coming here very soon. There's a product in the video that we can't showcase yet. As soon as we get the okay to showcase it, because that product is what was used to bandage me up in the field. As soon as we get the okay to go ahead and show it, then I'll show you the whole story behind what happened here. All right. Let's see if you guys can see it. So this is my finger that I pretty much ripped this part of it up a good distance. What I had done is dropped a Barrett 50 caliber barrel straight down onto my finger. The muzzle device, that angled edge, hit me right on the finger, and that's what basically did that. So pretty nasty stuff. I got to go put some, I got to clean it up, let it air out a little bit, get some fresh Neosporin on it. So there you guys go. Watch for the video. That's one of the things that that we wanted to talk about after the fact, after this happened, because we're quite a ways out in the middle of nowhere when the accident happened. Now, this definitely was not life-threatening, but it was bleeding very, very much. But just simple pressure stopped the bleeding. No tourniquets or anything were required. But we did make a video afterwards talking about the importance of having basic medical kits with you when you're out shooting, because, you know, face it, what we do is very dangerous, and guns go off out of battery. Guns blow up sometimes. Sometimes rounds come back off targets. I've been hit by ricochets that actually penetrated the skin, went into my chest. You know, we do things with dangerous tools, and it only makes sense to have a medical kit handy just in case you screw yourself up royal like I did. Hey, got another super chat.
So Tash 32 says, here's a bit of cash to get Jason to actually step in and help you with the rifle next time instead of just watching. If he can hear me, I did watch. He
watched the whole thing go down. He didn't have the camera rolling because we were just finishing up. Oh, go away. I hate it when I do that. But we were just finishing up filming, and I was tearing the M82 down. And yeah, he watched the whole thing go down. It was pretty entertaining, I think, for him and everybody else involved. But I do want to say that John Lovell was Johnny on the spot, man. Thank you, John. He was right there to get me to stop cussing long enough for him to be able to help me out there a little bit. Let's see.
All right.
Mercabo just released a new optic mount for the Sub 2000. Yeah, I know. I got one. I've been playing with it, and we will do a video about that, because the Sub 2000 is a very cool gun. I have several of them, got the mount, and some of their other modifications done to one of the Sub 2000s. I know that the PCC thing is coming back. I think IPSC, or one of the competitive organizations, kind of brought them back into the fold. So now you're seeing lots of guys running 9mm carbines. And I think that's really cool, because I think that's kind of what they're targeting that for. We definitely have a video coming on that. All right, guys.
Jim Nugent donated $99.99.
Jim,
for taking time. Hope your finger heals quickly.
Jim Nugent, you're a Patreon, aren't you, man? Thank you, brother, for all the support. We will be taking care of it. I'll keep my digit. It doesn't hurt all that bad anymore. Brother, thank you so much for the support, man. You've been amazing. And for all you watching, Jim has been a Patreon supporter of ours for quite some time, and a very, very good dude. All right.
There we go.
What's your thoughts on manually lowering the hammer on double action? If you have a hammer drop, use it. If you're going to lower the hammer, if you have to lower a hammer, I don't have a double action on me except for the one I'm carrying. Pinch the hammer between the thumb and the index finger, pull the trigger, release it, and release the trigger as you let it go forward, and let it stop at half cock. Thumbing the hammer down is a very dangerous thing to do. When I was much younger, I thumbed the hammer down on a Beretta. We were out shooting stuff in the water. My hand was dirty and muddy, and I thumbed the hammer down, and the hammer slipped, the gun fired, and you'll only do that once. Once that slide gets a run at your thumb, yeah, that, and you send a round down range you didn't intend to do. So use the hammer drop safety if you have it. All right, guys. Thanks. We're testing this new audio and video setup. Hopefully it looks good, sounds good, and we will be doing more live chats in the future. Thanks for watching. Thanks for 11 years of support. If you'd like to support us, we are 100% viewer supported. We take no industry money from any company. We only accept the support from our viewers, and there is a Patreon link down below. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you guys soon.